Thank you for joining us for the Miami Valley Salute to Veterans. I'm Cindy LaPointe-Dafler, a volunteer host for the Miami Valley Communications Council. My husband was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions in Vietnam in 1969. Being around our veterans and talking with them, hearing their stories and their thoughts is my way of honoring my husband's legacy. We hope that these memories from the veterans of our community will help us all understand the dedication of those who have served. Today, we're talking with Major General retired Edward J. Mechenbier of Columbus, an Air Force veteran who served from 1960 to 2004. He will tell us the story of his time in the military. Thank you for being here with us, Ed.
Oh, Cindy, good to see you again. It's been a while. So.
It's been a while.
So that'll be fun.
Okay, so I know a lot about you, but my audience doesn't. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us what made you decide to go in the military and why did you pick the Air Force?
I lost a bet. Simply put, I was the oldest of 8 kids. My father was a plumber and a steam fitter here in Dayton at the time. And I was at Chaminade High School. And as the oldest of 8 kids, my dad came to me one day and says, hey, if you want to go to college, given the economic condition of this family, you better get yourself a good scholarship. He says, in fact, I'll bet you $5 if you try to get in one of these military academies, you can make it. That was it. Before that, I had absolutely no indication that I had a military career in my life. In fact, I was thinking about going to St. Joseph's College in Kansas City, Missouri, which is a law school, pre-law school type thing. And that's what I kind of had in mind. And I was, applying for scholarships at other places, not based on my academic credentials, but based on need mostly. And then I actually did get the appointment from then Congressman Paul Whelan and went to the Air Force Academy.
Oh, wow.
Never looked back.
Oh, my gosh. Had you been away from home before?
Not other than Boy Scout camping trips.
So what did you think about that?
Well, I went into it knowing absolutely nothing. My father had been in the Navy for 18 months, never left Bainbridge, Maryland. He went through boot camp there in 1946 because he was deferred during the war because he was a critical skill as a welder. And he spent 17 or 18 months in the Navy and then got out and went back to welding and steam fitting around the country. So like I said, I've got 7 brothers and sisters. Most of us are born in different places because he was chasing work. And so I went into the Air Force on the I left Dayton on the 26th of June, 1960, and absolutely no idea what I was getting into.
Oh, my gosh.
And in fact, I had to borrow the $5 from my mother to give my dad to pay off the bet.
Well, I hope you paid your mother back eventually.
Eventually, yes.
Well, what did your parents think?
Well, I think they were proud, or one of those situations my dad would say, that's my boy. My mom would say, who the heck is that? How did he pull that one off? Well,
what kind of activities did you do when you were in high school, or were you athletic?
I worked 39 hours a week.
You worked?
I worked in the kitchen at St. Elizabeth Hospital for a while, and then I ended up working up at the University of Dayton. I had a lab up there where they were taking oscillograph charts to measure lateral and vertical vibrations in the tail of a B-52, and they were trying to determine what size the vertical tail should be from the D to the subsequent models, which were actually much bigger. And so that was it. I mean, I was between high school and working, kept me busy.
Oh, I guess. That's a lot of hours for a high school student.
Yeah, well, it was a good way to make money to go to college if you weren't smart enough to get a academic scholarship.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a jock, so nobody was offering me at 145 pounds any kind of a athletic scholarship.
Yeah. Okay. So where did you go for your basic training?
Oh, you do it actually at the Air Force Academy, the first 2 months
the academy,
of your time. Okay. You show up at the end of June, and then the academic year starts about the 3rd or 4th week of August. And so you between 27th of June, 1960, and about the 23rd of August, 1960 was basic training, which is largely patterned after regular military basic training if you've been through Lackland or Camp Lejeune or any other Army basic training place. Of course, in the environment of the Air Force Academy in the Colorado Rockies, it's a little different, but it's the same whole idea, you know. Break you down to a common denominator, the 800 or so of us that were in the class of 1964, and build you back up into what the Air Force needed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, what happened next?
Well, I managed to graduate in 1964 in the upper quarter of the second half, and went on to pilot training. Lucky to graduate, 36% attrition rate in my class.
Oh, wow.
So we started with a little over 813. I think we graduated at 497 and 98. And I went off to pilot training and did fairly well there, better than I'd done at the academy, obviously, because I graduated near the top of my class, and was assigned to the F-4 Phantom II aircraft at Royal Air Station, Bentwaters, England. So after combat crew training at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, I went to Europe for about 9 months before 66 of us in the 81st TAC Fighter Wing, the 91st, 92nd Tactical Fighter Squadrons were volunteered, quotes, to go to Vietnam, which was kind of exciting because we were in Europe, the war was in Vietnam, and if you wanted to be anybody, get some ribbons, get some recognition, get some combat time,
Sure.
you had to get there. So, you know, being volunteered really wasn't the worst thing that could happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
So left Bentwaters in November of 1966, then after a year at pilot training advanced, combat crew training at Davis-Monthan. Like I said, about 8 months at Bentwaters, I went to Da Nang Air Base in South Vietnam and started flying combat missions in late November 1966.
I'm going to back up a minute because when you went in the Air Force, did you know you were going to be a pilot? Was that the goal?
No, I went. Only reason I went and got on that airplane, that TWA Super G Constellation, in 26th of June 1960, was because I'd lost a bet. I honestly can't sit here and tell you, well, since I got my appointment from Congressman Whalen probably in March or April, that I had done some brilliant study and determined what my future was going to be in there. No, I was just a 17-year-old kid getting on an airplane and flying west.
How was the decision made for you to become a pilot then?
Oh, once you get to the academy, back in those days, if you were physically qualified, in other words, you had eyes, there was a lot of, I won't say pressure, but they were certainly pushing you to. The academy was fairly new. I was in the 6th graduating class. And there was a lot of pressure to make that 20% of the officer corps that was going to be graduates every year pilots. Mm-hmm. So at that time, even when you graduated from the academy, you were a rated navigator. That stopped before I graduated, but the first couple of classes, the emphasis on flying and aviation was so heavy that the guys graduated from the academy with second lieutenant bars and navigator wings on their chest, and then they went off to pilot training.
Oh, wow.
So in my class, we were a few hours short of all the requirements to be a winged navigator. So got to the academy, like I say, and I got a chance on one of my foreign field trips. I was in Okinawa, and I, through the luck of the draw, got a chance to fly in a 2-seat fighter aircraft, the TF-102. And that was the first time I really got hooked on flying. I had an orientation flight in the T-33, the pilot training aircraft during my basic summer at the academy, but that was just kind of a hang-on, the first time I'd been in an airplane other than as a passenger in the back. And that was a grand total of one time flying from Dayton to Colorado Springs.
Right.
First time I'd ever been in an airplane.
Oh, my gosh.
And away we went. And this guy took me up, let me fly the airplane. This is what I want to do.
Okay.
So that was like after my second year at the academy. And after that, it was just focused. I want to be a fighter pilot. I want to be a fighter pilot. And I still am the world's greatest fighter pilot, man. There's no question about
no
that.
question.
No question.
Absolutely. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me that after your pilot training, you went to England first and then Europe?
Then to Vietnam.
And then Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when did you get into Vietnam?
In November of 1966.
66. Okay.
Yep.
And tell us stories then.
Well, I was fortunate or unfortunate, however you want to look at it, to fly 113 and a half combat missions, 79 and a half of them over North Vietnam. I was about 2 to 3 weeks short of completing my tour, and the chance came for one more trip to Hanoi. And I'd been there many times, obviously, having flown 80 times over the North, and then another 30 or so missions inside South Vietnam. And so I went, asked my backseater, I said, what do you think? Let's go ahead and do one. F4 had 2 guys. They had a aircraft commander in the front, and then my backseater, they call him pilot systems operator, Kevin McManus, happened to have been a classmate of mine from the Air Force Academy. Mm. And I said, well, what do you say? We'll go to Hanoi one more time. Because after 80, you didn't have to go to Hanoi. They let you fly the less threat-laden, loaded missions a little further south in the route packages. Heck, we've been there enough. We know what we're doing. You know.
Yeah.
We've seen downtown. Let's go again. So we took off, and our mission was to bomb the Vu-Chu Railroad Yard about 30 miles northeast of Hanoi. And if you've seen these pictures of the Second World War with all the flak going off as the bombers go trucking, that's exactly what it looked like over Hanoi that day.
Oh, my gosh.
And actually sitting there, just involuntarily dodging these little black puffballs going off all around you. And coming off the target, we dropped our bombs on the rear yard coming off the target. I lit the afterburner to make a faster exit from the area where people would probably be upset with us. And the engine exploded. So
it was hit?
In my mind, no. Because the rest of the story is I had flown that same airplane, 5 days previous and had been hit. And in the left engine, which caught fire, had to shut it down, made an emergency landing in Thailand, fixed the airplane, flew it back to Vietnam. This was the next time it flew. I lit the afterburner on the left engine coming off the target, and immediately got a firelight. Now, there are reports, and I think in the book it says that I was hit with an 85 millimeter shell. I never felt it. All I saw was the firelight on the airplane, and then the F-floor just had hydraulic flight controls, didn't have any belt cranks, pulleys, whistles, or wires, or anything else. So once the hydraulic system started to burn, I was, had it for a flight control system for the stick in my hand. All I had was a wet noodle. And so the airplane did 6 snap rolls, and every time it got a little bit lower, pointing down closer to the ground. And I'm fighting it. I'm the world's greatest fighter pilot. I'm going to save this sucker. I don't care if it is on fire. It's mine. It's mine. I got it. I looked by my, and there's a wonderful gentleman sitting about 6 feet behind me named Kevin Joseph Patrick McManus said, Ed, I don't think we're going to make it. And I'd always told him, I said, Kevin, if I ever tell you how to bail out, I'll say, bail out, Kevin, bail out. And if you hear the second bail out, you're second out. So I said, bail out. Kevin, he said, sayonara, Ed. We went together. Oh. And the eyewitness said that it was nothing. There was no airplane left by this time. It was just a big orange fireball. And it was upside down, apparently, because these 2 seats came out of the bottom of the fireball in perfect formation.
Oh, my God.
And it takes 1 3/4 seconds from the time you pull the ejection handle on the old ACES 2 ejection seat, that Martin Baker ejection seat, until you have a parachute. Before the parachute opened, the airplane hit the ground at 700 miles an hour. Because that was the last airspeed I saw. I saw 620 knots, about 700 miles an hour when we jumped out. And we came out of the bottom of the fireball, had a very short parachute ride with lots of people on the ground who were very upset, shooting at us. You hear all the bullets go flying by. And I landed on a roof, rolled off the pitch roof onto the ground, was completely tied up in my parachute, which was good because there were a lot of them, and I was one of me, and I wasn't going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So gift wrapped myself.
Gosh. Wrapped up.
Mm-hmm. In silk.
In silk.
Elegant.
And what about McManus?
Yeah, Kevin landed not very far because we jumped out at very low altitude, short parachute ride, and we landed on the ground not far away from each other. And they separated us initially, cut all of our clothes off. And that's scary right there with the machetes. I mean, they literally cut everything off. In the book, there's a picture of me with just my skivvy shorts, a white T-shirt and white shorts, and that didn't last much beyond that picture. They cut that off too. They didn't unzip it, didn't unbutton it, didn't Velcro it or anything else. They just cut them off with a couple big machetes, and that got scary in some areas. And then they put a loincloth around us and ran us through a bunch of villages to parade us. And at one point, put us before a firing squad. Had some slit trenches in the ground there. Made us stand at the end and says, "Now you die." Not much English, rather, and a lot of hand signs. And so we're standing with our backs over these, what turned out to be air raid trenches and not graves. But lined up so when they shot us, boom. And I got the firing squad lined up and said, "Mot high. 1, 2. More pictures, more pictures." Everybody standing around, they back up, take more pictures. "Now you die, now you die." Mot high. 1, 2. Small children, back up, back up. No small children. Moved everybody around. "Now you die." Mot high. And then everybody started laughing. It had been all a mock execution. But looking down the barrel of our 6 or 7 guns had my attention.
Yeah, I'm sure you were convinced that was it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no doubt about it. I was praying like a son of a gun. I'd made my peace with the Lord and said, "Here I come."
Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. What happened then?
Well, and for about, we got shot down at 2:15 in the afternoon, which is our time over target, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And after being run through a bunch of villages and been mildly, I'll put it, abused by the villagers, to include being put on they finally got Kevin and I together, put us up against, like, in the old parks, we used to have splashboards and a concrete wall, and the water fountain coming on top. They put us up against a concrete wall, tied us up, and started letting the kids have fun, throwing rocks and rats and things like that. And people come up and we're sticking bamboo in us, in our hands and our feet, and anything else they could get near. But at the same time, is like I said, most of the population was pretty agitated and upset with us. But there were a few people who said nothing but smiled and bowed politely, like, "We understand." And then all of a sudden, somebody behind me in perfect English said, "What's your name?" So I said, Edward J. Mechenbier. That's all they said. Never heard from them again. But that was obviously somebody who, and in fact, in the book, there's a picture of me, as I said, in my underwear. So if somebody there had a camera and somebody wanted to identify me who spoke English. And so after 3 months, my status was changed from killed in action, which is another funny story, to missing in action. And they figured that I had to be that guy, Ted McIntyre, whose name got let out. Ed McIntyre is close enough to Ted McIntyre, so they figured that was me.
Oh, my gosh. So what's the funny story?
So around, we got out of jail in 1973. Around 2005, I went to the Air Force Academy. And Kevin was with me, and we went into the library and got out the official copy of Polaris, the annual yearbook. And I said, "Hey, Kevin," I said, "seriously." Now, McManus and Mechenbier were listed alphabetically. I happened to be on the same page. So I opened up this official Polaris, this official document from the United States Air Force Academy. And sure enough, there's Kevin's picture and my picture. And it's got written right there, "Deceased, 14 June 1967, our shoot down date."
Oh, my God.
And I say, "Hey, Kevin, we're dead." Yeah. So we got a little chuckle out of it. And so I took the book up to one of the people who worked. I'm not making up a word of this, really, because you could. I took the book up to somebody who worked in the library, and I said, "This is the official Academy document." "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, I happen to know there's a couple mistakes in here." "Oh, yeah?" I says, "Yeah, you got 2 people listed as dead who I happen to know aren't." "Okay, well, who?" So I opened the book and I pointed to Kevin and Ed, and I said, "These 2 guys." And I said, "That's him and me." And the guy looked at me and says, "Can you prove it?" So I got out my military ID. Kevin got his out. Well, a couple of years later, I'm back at the academy for a speaking engagement. And I was going to say, well, this is cute. I want to go see if they did subsequently make the change. Because the guy said, I'm not authorized to make the change. He says, I'll have to take it up to somebody who can. Okay, so I went back and I had been, where it said deceased, it was lined out and they had just written in MIA. So I was doing good. So I got a pen out, and despite the fact, of course, if this other guy couldn't deface this government document, I could. And I wrote, "Thank you very much. I am very much alive and well," in April 2008, and signed my name and I put an arrow over. Kevin was with me. I'll put an arrow over to his on the other side page. And he is too.
Oh, my God. Well, so, things happen.
Well, it's the old Mark Twain thing. Reports of my death were slightly exaggerated.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Well, so your experience in the Vietnam prison, do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Oh, well, people, there are a lot of movies. The movie Hanoi Hilton was an absolute farce about the way they treat him. And the whole experience was, yes, you can sum it up and say, did they torture you? Yes. Did they break you? Yes, at some point. Did you bounce back? Yes. Were there nice guards there? No. Save one. We had one guard who was named Boo Boo, who never did anything to hurt anybody, really. But the experience, is like I say, has been documented. Yes, there was torture. Yes, there was a 800 calorie a day or 600 calorie a day. I lost. I went from 198 to 133 pounds. I lost 66 pounds while I was there. But there were 460 men there who were not volunteers, not specially trained, who had the opportunity to demonstrate behavior, courage, stick-to-itiveness, camaraderie that is just common amongst all the people who wear the uniform. Yeah. And so people, I could never go through what you did. And they've seen pictures, of us with our arms dislocated, rotating our arms over the top of our head and dislocating both shoulders with our hands tied together and our feet. And then, guys being beat and, some guys being literally beat to death. And like I said, on a diet of 600-800 calories a day. But anybody would have done it. I mean, it was just, we were products of a society, we were products of a training system, and we had a brotherhood that is not unique to the guys who served in Vietnam. But and they tend to overlook the fact that the body is an amazingly resilient thing, and yes, we mentally and physically can endure a lot of things. You just take some decisions in your life. I mean, the honorable service of your husband has put you in a situation where you say, Cindy, I don't like this. I just don't know what I'm going to do. But you do. Mm-hmm. In this, we always have more than we ever give ourselves credit for. And we look at what other people do and say, I couldn't do that. Yes, you could. Yeah. And you have. Yeah. So, I mean, that's my message to a lot of people that, we're not heroes. In fact, a guy by the name of Charlie Plum wrote a book, I'm No Hero. And that's really it. I mean, we were not heroes. We were just those who had the chance, as Admiral Denton said, to serve our country in an unusual circumstance. We didn't do anything that we don't think any other random selection of people would have done.
Wow. That's amazing.
But grateful.
It's still amazing.
Because, for example, why did I live? Of the 66 guys in my squadron and wing in Europe that volunteered to go to Vietnam, of that 66, I was the 33rd to get shot down. Now, that's not to say that half the fighter pilots in Vietnam got shot down. It's just a statistical group. Of those 33 who got shot down, 4 of us lived.
Oh, wow.
I mean, so why, how? Fickle finger of fate, thank you, God, whatever. That's just a fact. So it makes you just sit down and appreciate what you do have.
Yes.
And be mindful of what others gave. It's not a testament to those of us who are putative. It's a testament to the American spirit, to the American person who wears the uniform. and serves.
Yes.
Like my 2 kids.
Both your kids are in service?
2 of 4 were. Well, one of them still is. One of them was retired.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How does it feel to have a retiree when you...
I hadn't thought of that, Cindy. Thank you. I'll call her up and tell her, says, why did you retire when you were 16?
There you go. How long were you there?
5 years, 8 months, and 4 days.
Okay.
But who's counting?
But who's counting?
But the interesting thing about it is, that's a long time. But the first guy I talked to, the first guy I made communication with over, Lieutenant Commander Bob Shoemaker, had been there 2 years when I got shot down. And Everett Alvarez got shot down in August of 1964 until January of 1973. So, he's over 8 years.
God.
So, but again, like anything in life, you learn to adapt, you learn to adjust, you learn to survive and be grateful, because I don't think any of us are bitter. It was a stage of our life. I mean, you've had to get over personal losses like that. Okay, how have you survived all these years? Huh? You find a way to cope, and it's in you. And of course, in any situation, you're not by yourself. If you think you're by yourself, you're going to go in a corner, suck your thumb, and wither away. Mm-hmm. It's like getting old and retiring and not doing anything. You will wither away. Yeah. But if you got people around you, you keep yourself busy, you realize, okay, I don't feel sorry for myself. There may be a little milk spilled on the floor, but get up and keep going. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do.
Absolutely.
I mean, and what have you been doing for the last umpteen years to keep yourself busy? Now that's a rhetorical question. Yeah. Because I know you haven't sat back and said, oh, woe is me.
No.
Then you will wither and die.
Yeah.
I refuse to do that. Now, I got shot down. I'm rambling here, but I got shot down on the 14th of June. I was 24 years old. So my birthday is the 29th of June. And I said, I'll be damned if I'm going to spend that significant birthday in this rat hole. So every year I was there, I took a year off instead of adding one. I got out of jail. I was 17, and I'm back up to 28 now. So it's attitude.
Yeah.
If you think you're old, you are.
Yeah. You've got a very positive attitude.
I do. I really do, because number one, I'm grateful. Mm-hmm. I came within 2 seconds of dying, and I didn't. I've got wonderful people in my life who keep me well grounded in the fact that I'm mortal, despite being the world's greatest fighter pilot. I'm just grateful, and it's not like I'm an apostle going around telling people, oh, you got to be grateful, you got to be on your knees praying, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to sleep wrapped up in the American flag. But when was the last time you got burned because the hot water was on the right and the cold water was on the left? It doesn't happen. The light switch is always right there on the opposite side of the hinges on the door, right about there. Those little things we take for granted. Mm-hmm. But when you start to appreciate them without being melancholy and maudlin and all the rest of that stuff, when you just realize, okay, hey, there's a purpose for my being here. Now, I'm still trying to figure out what the heck it was or is, but that's the excitement of it. Yeah. My life is not stayed. My life is not dead. I'm happy. And I volunteer now up at the Marion Correctional Institute in Marion, Ohio, and I work with veterans who are incarcerated there.
Wow.
And they call me the rookie because most of them have been there 25, 30, 40 years. Yeah. And I only got 6 years. But you find a way to connect with other people with similar experiences or with diverse experiences that can make your life richer and better. And you got to live with it. You got to enjoy it.
Wow. Tell me about the return home.
Well, you take 6 years of your life and just say they didn't exist. Mm-hmm. And just ignore them. Yep. Doesn't make much difference. So that's exactly the way I treat it. When I came home, there was a popular expression, today is the first day of the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And so that's the attitude I took. Yeah. When I play or get questions about Trivial Pursuits between 1966 and 1973, time out, King's X, I don't have to answer that. Yeah. Didn't happen. Yeah. It's kind of a cavalier way to look at it.
Certainly, but the time is gone.
The time is gone.
And you can't change that.
You can't change it. And when we came home, there was a book that they gave us all. It was already there in the yeah, I think it was in the Philippines already, our first stop. They had these books for us, Why You Were Gone. It was a bound book. And I started looking through it, and just think about the last 6 years of headlines in the newspaper. And how many good news stories do you think made the front page one? So I started looking through this thing, and I was just, all the news events from 1966 to 1973. Boom. Threw that sucker away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not my life. I didn't live it. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Today is the first day of the rest of my life. And I just started going forward from there.
Wow.
And,
But you were in the Air Force for a long time.
and I loved it.
What did you do when you came back? Where did they put you?
After 3 months in a hospital status at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, I was very lucky in that my sponsor, my host, my seeing eye dog was Lieutenant, I think he was then just a Major, Doug Cairns, who happened to also have been an Air Force Academy graduate a couple of years ahead of me. And he was then we had the 4950th Test Wing at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so these guys are all test pilots. Well, Doug said, well, why don't you come over here and fly with us? You know more about F-4s than we do because they had been flying F-100s as a fighter airplane. So I got put in the fighter branch of the 4950th Test Wing at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And we had 8 airplanes and 5 pilots. And 2 T-39s, which is a little executive jet, which was the first airplane I flew to get recurrent. And then we had several models of the F-4. And another very good friend of mine to this day, Larry Bogeman, was also in the test wing. And so as a fighter pilot, I was getting 80 hours a month flying here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as a test pilot. And then as I'm still a captain, by the way, which is another interesting thing because when we were in jail, we got promoted on time. Well, being an Air Force Academy graduate, all my classmates who were not in jail got promoted in what we call below the zone early. So there were, from the class of 1964, there were 10 of us who were prisoners of war.
Oh, wow.
So, which closely approximates the number of graduates in 1973 from the class of 1964 who were still captains. Because all of our contemporaries were those wonder boys from the Air Force Academy early class who had been promoted to major already. So we're behind the power curve already. So when I finally made major in 1975, which was, I guess, sort of been just about on time, the Air Force had what they call aviation service dates. You get to 132 months, 11 years of flying activity, and then you went off and you did something else, a career broadening experience. I said, time out. I spent 6 of those 11 years sucking my thumb in jail, and you're counting that as aviation service? All I want to do is fly airplanes. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, you got to go. And by the way, you were promoted high on the list for major, so you're going to go to Armed Forces Staff College, and then you're going to go to Scott Air Force Base and be a command post duty officer. This did not appeal to me.
Behind a desk.
Behind a desk. So I went over to Springfield, and Colonel Andrew Lacey was the commander of the 178th Fighter Group at Springfield, Ohio, the Air National Guard Base. And this is like in early June. I was supposed to pin on the 1st of July. And I said, sir, do you need any pilots? And he says, what are you doing now? I said, well, sir, I'm flying F-4s for the most part over at Wright-Patterson at Test Wing. He says, yeah. He says, they're flying F-100s at the time. He says, yeah, we'll take you on. I mean, that was the extent of the interview.
Wow.
And so I came back over to Wright-Patterson. I says, I'm going to resign my regular commission. Well, okay, sir, I'll take this down. And I got to be out by the 30th of June because I was supposed to put on major, which would incur a further obligation once I pin my major. But we can't do it. Yeah, we're going to do it. So in that period of about 3 weeks, I had resigned my regular commission. Took a commission in the Ohio National Guard. For the next 16 years, I defended Ohio from Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia.
Oh, thank God.
Flying the F-100 and the F-16, and the A-7 rather, up to the time they went to the F-16 over there. And so I was fulfilling my dream. I was still a fighter pilot, up through the rank of lieutenant colonel. I was a squadron commander out at Springfield for 6 years. And let me tell you, you military guys, the world's greatest job is being a squadron commander. It's just the right size. You can know everybody. You can know almost everything everybody does. And we just had a wonderful time. And I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed my time in the Air National Guard. And I was working part-time Air National Guard. I had a job over at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as a civilian in the F-16s. So I was traveling the world. I was the government representative to General Dynamics Marketing Worldwide. So as the F-16 was being marketed around the world, I went along to make sure that the contractor only said what he could and only offered what he could. And that was a great experience. I had a lot of fun.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was still, for some reason, I'm not exactly sure how, I was involved and invited to play in the Saturday morning protocol golf at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base with all the generals. Right, here I am, I'm a lieutenant colonel, and I'm the MC or the speaker at a lot of events on the base, or some number of events. And Charlie McDonald, who was the commander of Air Force Logistics Command at the time, said, "Ed, how are things going?" I said, "Well, sir, going pretty good. I'm getting ready to retire." He says, "What's that?" I said, "Well, I'm coming up on 28 years, lieutenant colonel in the Ohio National Guard, and there's no 06 flying, no colonel flying job that I can get into, so I might as well retire." And he says, "Well, did you ever think about coming back on active duty with a reserve commission?" "No." "Okay." End of conversation. 2 weeks later, I'm playing golf with then Major General Ed Bracken. He says, "Congratulations." I said, "Well, thank you." I said, I'm going to miss wearing the uniform, but, there'll be more time for golf. He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Don't you know?" I said, "No, what?" He said, "General McDonald transferred you to the reserve. You're coming back to work for him." So all of a sudden now I've got a reserve commission, and I'm back as a reserve officer working in the headquarters. And I get promoted to colonel, I get promoted to brigadier, I get promoted to major general, and eventually I retired.
You finally convinced them to let you retire then.
No, they convinced me. Only the government is allowed to have age discrimination. When I turned 62, they threw me out.
Oh, my God.
In fact, I retired with 44 years and 3 days because I retired a day after my 62nd birthday, so I snuck one extra day in.
Oh, my God.
But it was a storybook career. So many serendipitous, wonderful things. And do I miss it? Only every day. Mm-hmm. As you well know, it's a family, it's a brotherhood, it's a fraternity. Use all those hokey words, but it's true. Mm-hmm. I still do a lot of speaking and leadership and resiliency stuff. And I've got a picture of an X-ray of a I'll say it's my head, and in the middle of it's an F4. Because once it's in your system, it never goes away.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't want it to go away.
Yeah.
In fact, my daughter, when she retired as a master sergeant, she called me up a couple of days later and says, "Dad, how can I get back in?"
Oh.
Well, she never did, but even it was just a perfect example of how it becomes part of your life.
It's like a calling.
It is, you
Yeah.
know. And now, being the spouse, I can tell you something else I like to do. When I go to a group, I says, "I want all the veterans to raise their hand." Well, invariably, there's a bunch of old hairy guys, sagging guts and droopy jowls and all the rest of the stuff. And I said, "Well, that's half of the veterans in this crowd. How about you spouses? You're veterans too, believe me. Because if you don't wind us up and kick us out the door, we ain't going to have much of a career." And so, I always include the spouses or the husbands, either if the wife is a member, in recognizing veterans, because it's a team effort. Mm-hmm. Without it, it doesn't work. Yeah. It gets real lonely and it gets real short.
Wow.
So thank you for being a veteran.
Thank you. If you're just joining us, this is Miami Valley Communications Council Salute to Veterans podcast. I'm your host, Cindy LaPointe-Dafler, and today we're talking with Air Force veteran Major General Edward J. Mechenbier.
very much retired.
And very much retired.
I'm not really.
Finally, right?
Yeah, finally. But if I could have stayed on, I would have,
Yeah.
frankly. But I'm still very active, as we've been saying.
Yeah, you retired in 2004,
Mm-hmm.
and where did you go? What did you do? I mean, and tell me.
Yeah, well, I worked for like everybody else does. I retired. I'd been with a defense contractor during my time. I was with the Air National Guard. Had another job. I worked for General Electric Aerospace for a period of time. Ran their business development operation in the eastern half of the U.S. just for the aerospace aspect of it. And then I went to Science Applications International Corporation, which later split and became Leidos, which still has a big presence here in the Dayton area. So I was a dreaded defense contractor, and thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it was good because it kept me blue,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of great friends there. And of course, you sit there and you look at what defense contractors do, and they're part of the team now too. I mean, it's not like they're the evil bad guys. So it's interesting to see how they are.
Are a lot of them veterans as well?
Yeah, and that's just
the thing.
it.
Yeah.
Of course, being a retired general, I mean, they want to know what door can you open, right? As much as what technical knowledge you bring to the company's offerings. But I enjoyed that for several years before taking advantage of. I got to the point where I really didn't think I was contributing at all, as if I had ever really contributed much. And so when COVID hit, I took the chance to separate myself from anything that would generate a 1099 or a W-2 on an annual basis. And I've gone into the volunteer side. I still serve on several public and private boards, most enjoyably for me, the Right Bee Flyer here in town.
Ah.
And like I said earlier, I volunteer up at the Marion Correctional Institute working for the veterans up there.
That's
fun.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
I've got a trauma situation coming up, though. Yeah. After 32 years, my barber is coming up for parole, so I may have to go find a new barber.
Oh, no.
So I got my fingers crossed, and I'm praying that I have to get a new barber that Ray gets out sometime soon here, maybe as early as December.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it is.
And to work with those prisoners.
Yeah.
And to see them move on and get out and
Yeah.
go on with life.
Yeah. And it is interesting to see these men who have been there for years and decades still have a very positive, the organization that I work with up there, actually I don't work with them. I work as an individual, I volunteer as an individual, but my connection is with a group of veterans in the VFW post. I mean, the AMVETS post up there. AMVETS post number 42. And it was the outstanding AMVETS post in the state of Ohio a couple of years ago. So these guys are still very active in doing charity work and trying to help other people, raising money. And so I'm just proud to be associated with them who have not decided, oh, woe is me, I'm in jail for the rest of my life, or I'm in jail for 20 years and I can't do anything except suck my thumb. Now, these guys are still very active in doing things for other people.
Yeah. Oh,
so
that's
proud
great.
to be part of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
I'm one of two outside guys that's a member of the group. The other guy who is the outside guy is one of the men who works there who has to escort me because he works there.
Okay. Well, tell me, whatever is it Kevin? Whatever happened with Kevin?
Kevin he came home and retired as a lieutenant colonel as the professor of air science at Duke University. And happy to go down there a couple of years ago and dedicate a hall to his presence. He never got back into flying, and he shouldn't have. Kevin was a cerebral. He graduated like 4th or 5th in our class from the academy. So he was a very smart man. He went off and got a master MBA before going on to serve as a professor of air science at Duke University. And then Kevin was to say the least, a chain smoker. Not that we only got 3 cigarettes a day in jail, but he smoked 6 because he took my 3, which was good because I was never a smoker. Kevin died now 12 years ago of lung cancer, And I saw him. This is morbidly funny, but this is perfectly Kevin. What a wonderful, wonderful human being. And I still pray to him every day because remember, he's the guy who said, Ed, I don't think we're going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'd been part of that smoking hole in the ground. But my memory of Kevin 2 weeks before he passed, IV in his arm, morphine drip, cannula in his nose because his lungs were failing, and a cigarette.
Oh, my God.
So, St. Kevin, thank you. And I pray to him every day.
Absolutely. Do you see anybody else that you used to serve with? Or
Well, that's interesting because the Vietnamese kept us in small groups. Right until the end, we were in large groups. And after the Sante raid for a period of about 6 months, 30 of us were together. Otherwise, they kept you by yourself or with one or two other guys. And very sad to say that of the 8 guys I kind of lived with for any period of time, 6 of them have passed.
Mm-hmm.
But the other guys, as a group, we have a big reunion every 5 years. So we just had our 50th reunion earlier this year out in California, and I was one of the younger guys. Like I said, I was 24 when I got shot down, and the average age of the guy who got shot down was 33. The average age of the guy who came home in 1973 was, a little bit past 38. So the guys as a group guys as a group are a little older. Travel's a little more difficult. But we do get together, and there's a very active email group that keeps telling stories and telling lies and passing on funeral notices.
Yeah.
But the group is still kicking. Now, along that line, another whole subject of conversation was how did we communicate in jail? Mm-hmm. And there's the famous TAP code. Mm-hmm. And a fellow by the name of Smitty Harris, Carlisle, his proper first name, who lives down in Tupelo, Mississippi, is credited with bringing that in, something he learned as a Cub Scout. Well, here in November at the National Veterans Museum in Columbus, Paul Carey, Tom Moe, Guy Gruters, and Ed Mechenbier, along with the Ford Oval of Honor, are going to pay tribute to Smitty Harris for what he did and his impact on our time. And we're going to have a little program, big national breakfast, actually, at the National Veterans Museum. And so the 4 of us are going to get together for breakfast that day.
Oh, that's great.
And the TV station down in Tupelo, Mississippi, because Smitty doesn't travel anymore, is going to do a live feed up to the audience here in Columbus.
Oh.
So it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So that answers the do you attend military reunions? So you kind of
we do. Yeah. In fact, it was out at the Academy for my number 60. I inadvertently mentioned it. 60. We just had our 60th reunion for the class of 1964 from the Air Force Academy, and of the 478, I think we still have about 200 and some alive, 220 alive, of which 115 or 16 made it to the reunion. So there were a couple guys I hadn't seen in 60 years. And then about 2 weeks ago, in the National Aviation Hall of Fame, 2 of my classmates have now been inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame here in Dayton. Paul Kaminsky and more recently Frederick Gregory, astronaut, were inducted, and 7 or 8 of my classmates came in town. We kind of hang together, class of 64. So the guys came in from all over the country to honor Fred as his induction into the National Aviation Hall of Fame.
That's great.
That is great.
Okay. Is there any other stories that you're holding back on?
You better be careful what you trigger, because I could go on for a long time. Because I've always felt that what was the key thing that sustained Ed Mechenbier during those years, and it was I don't take myself too seriously, and a sense of humor can overcome a lot of bad things. Mm-hmm. And and I don't know where I first saw it, but I remember distinctly seeing a cartoon of Sylvester the cat. And the inscription on this black and white drawing was, It's the little things that make the difference. It's the little difference that makes all the difference. So when you go through life with that attitude, I don't have to be great. I don't have to conquer mountains. I don't have to do a lot of fantastic, phantasmaglorious things. But just doing a lot of little things makes a bigger impact.
Yeah.
Makes a more lasting impact. So I kind of focus on my own capabilities rather than thinking although I'm the world's greatest fighter pilot.
Of course.
Rather than, always climbing the top of Mount Everest. If I can climb a whole bunch of little hills and make other people's life happy, make them understand that, life is good. Be grateful for what you have.
Is there anything you have always wanted to share about your service or veteran experience that you haven't?
No, I'm pretty much
Thank you.
I'm pretty much of a sieve.
Been open.
I think the military, and I couldn't be proud of. I have 4 children. One of them has got her own business here. Basically, as a daycare operator here. One's a professor up at Kent State University. One already retired from the Air Force. I got a senior master sergeant son still serving on active duty. I couldn't be more proud, and that's where I take my happiness, my joy, and saying, okay,
family is everything.
Family is everything.
What would you like people to remember from your story?
Never sell yourself short.
Hey, I like that.
Never give up. Never doubt your own business, because if you don't think you're the greatest at what you are, guess what? You aren't.
Oh, wow.
That's not an arrogant attitude. It's a confident attitude that, okay, like I keep saying, I'm the world's greatest fighter pilot. If I don't believe that, there's some poor, misguided young man or woman out there who thinks they are. And I'm just trying to save them from that self-delusion for the rest of their lives.
That's wonderful. This, if you can see it, let me get it straight. This is Ed Mechenbier's book, his biography. I actually have this book, but I loaned it to somebody. You know how that works?
Yes.
I'll have to get a new one, and I'll have to come and see you for an autograph.
Got a deal. Just give me an address. You'll have it in the mail.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ed. I was just thrilled when you agreed to come all the way from Columbus to Dayton.
So far.
It is. It's pretty far.
Yeah, an hour and a half, but it's pleasant.
Yeah. Well, good.
So thank you. And thank you for what you continue to do. I mean, this, to the audience, you bring a connectivity that either vicariously or just an appreciation for what the military does. And I think it's important that people understand, the young men and women who are serving this country now, they're soft. They're not, no. They're still held to a higher standard.
Absolutely.
And they're doing a wonderful job.
Yes.
Thank you.